The Shadow. It was a Friday night, in August of last year. Me and my friend were going to be moving houses the next 2 days, on Saturday and Sunday. I was going to be staying at his house in town those next 2 days, so I wouldn't be late for the job. We were reaching out at his house, playing video games and listening to music. Soon, it reached nighttime and I wanted to go back to my house out of town to grab some dip, waters, and extra clothes. While driving there, me and my buddy were cracking jokes and having a good time. We pulled up on the road that led down to my house, and I noticed the loft light was still on. The loft had just one window facing the road, so just a couple days before, my father had shown some people around the house who were interested in purchasing it. I told my friend, shit, my dad left the upstairs lights on. As I pulled up into the driveway, me and my buddy looked up at the loft about the same time, and we both saw a shadow standing there. The shadow was about 7 to 6 feet tall, and it was all black. It had no features to it. It looked like a human form, but it was all black. Immediately, we both looked at each other and asked, "Did you see that?" My heart was racing. All the hairs on my body were standing up. I was so shocked I could barely talk. I just kept stuttering. I unlocked the door and made my way upstairs. No one was home. My father had gone to Idaho just a couple days before, a 14-hour drive there and back, and my mom and my 3 brothers were living the next town over. So, at this point, I was questioning myself who could be in my house. My friend and I checked all the rooms in my house. We found no one. We chalked it up that we were the only ones in the house. We checked around the loft to see if anything could cast a human-sized shadow onto the window, and we came up with none of the objects in the loft could do that. We grabbed my extra clothes, dip, and some waters and got out of there. I told my father about this the next day after work, and he jokingly said if we were on drugs or not. I was a skeptic before about the paranormal, but after that experience, I don't know. It was hot. I'll start by saying I'm a skeptic who wants to believe. Even though this happened, and I've had a few other instances that would help me to believe, I remain skeptical. This happened about 10 years ago. It was either July or August, one of those nights where the sunset doesn't bring relief from the humidity. I was hanging out with a friend of mine, and because it's an important part of the story, let me tell you a bit about her. Her older brother died when we were in high school. It was really sad, of course. Her family never really got past it to this day. I honestly think that's a big part of the reason they haven't gone past it is because of the happenings like the one I'm going to tell you. So, we're at this guy's apartment. It was Loser, what we call this guy since he is a loser. Someone else, can't remember who, my friend and I. His apartment was a duplex style. We were on the top floor. He had a rather large sectional sofa. He and the other person were on one side of the L that was set against the walls with windows. There was a box fan placed inside one of the open window frames. It was off. My friend sat closest to the wall on the other side of the L, pretty much right in front of the box fan, and I was next to her. It was frickin' hot. Like, I could see sweat dripping down my friend's face. We were having a few beers and just hang out, like we did every other night of that summer. My friend wiped her brow, looked at me, and said, "It's friggin' hot." Immediately after the words came out of her mouth, the fan in the window turned on full blast. Friggin' unbelievable. My jaw dropped and I just looked at her. She looked at me and said, "This kind of stuff happens all the time." Loser attributed it to the other guy we knew who had passed away a few weeks earlier. But I'm pretty sure it was my friend's brother. I think he does this kind of thing often with his family. Many people would feel comfort knowing their relatives was watching over them. I think it just messes with my friend's head. She still hasn't really dealt with his death. Anyways, now I'm just rambling. This isn't really scary. I've never really been creeped out by his potential guardianship. I just figured I'd share after reading through some of the other posts on here. Feel free to debunk this event, I'd be happy to hear a more reasonable explanation. The timing of it was so spot on that I have a hard time looking at it any other way. I started believing in paranormal activity after what happened to me. After the death of my ex-girlfriend in November 2011, I've been experiencing very weird phenomenon. About a couple of months after her death, I was seeing stuff that looks like orbs around my room every night. They varied in beautiful bluish silver, fiery red, whitish colors. At first I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me, till I realized that they were really there. Unfortunately, only I could see them, as they light up the whole room. My friends couldn't see them, and they thought I was making this all up, till they started to hear voices that I couldn't hear myself. They said some voices are just pure long screams, which could only be heard when they appeared to me at night. This went on till around August 2013, when I met another girl and we started dating. Since that day, the orbs were no more peaceful, with the exception of the whitish orbs. Every night I slept in pain of the appearance of the fiery red and bluish silver orbs. They seemed to charge at my chest every night, inflicting huge pain. My girlfriend knew about them, as I have told her about them before. To my surprise, she could also hear them when I used to call her phone every night. Every time the white orbs came into existence, the other two orbs would suddenly disappear for the rest of the night, and they would remain there until I sleep, as if protecting me. After lots of research and assumptions, we came up that the orbs were my ex-girlfriend's spirits attacking me, because she was angry that I fell in love again with someone other than she. The white orbs, we concluded that it was either the protective spirit, angel maybe, or my father's spirit protecting me. My father was the closest person to me when he died, so we assumed that he was protecting me from her or something. We are not exactly sure. Anyways, this went on for a solid 6 or 7 months of pain and couldn't sleep well at all. I visited a psychiatrist and other people that could possibly help me. However, none could help, and none could even identify what was going on. After this period, my girlfriend described that I was doing sudden actions and parts of my body was shaking on its own without realizing they were. She got so scared that she started talking to thin air, telling her spirit to leave me. I told her I do not see any orbs yet, but she was done with it, and she was screaming to the spirit to leave me. After that, the only thing I remember was me sleeping in her arms, and nothing ever came back again at night. I was shocked because after her screaming, I do not remember anything at all. I remained quiet about it for a little while, but being a nosy person, I asked her. She refused to tell me, and she started to tear. After some persuading and relaxing her, she finally told me. She said that the spirit somehow managed to get inside me and talk to her, through me, in a very weird voice. That wasn't mine or a girl's voice. It threatened my girlfriend to leave me alone, because I only belonged to her, and she was punishing me for betraying her. My girlfriend talked to her, refusing to this day to tell me what they talked about. But what I heard her tell her mother on the phone once was, I told her that if you love me, you will want him to live a happy life and not die. Plus, no one hurts or inflicts pain to someone they love. She then realized I was standing there, so she changed the subject immediately. Please note that all what I said were just assumptions. We do not know the truth or what was going on, and many things still remain a mystery to this day. I posted this here just to share with you an experience I once had that I am now glad is over. If you had a similar experience, I'll be more than happy to hear it. And if by any chance you have any explanation to what happened, I will be more happy to hear it too. P.S. This turned me from a skeptical person to a believer of paranormal stuff. House sitting. When I was about 20 years old, I got talked into house sitting by recently deceased great uncle's house until it could be sold. Now, I don't remember all the details, but my parents volunteered me for the job while I was away at college and told my aunt I'd be able to live there over the summer and keep an eye on things. She was thrilled because she lived about 300 or so miles away and couldn't be there for all the repairs that it needed doing. By the time I got there, the house was pretty empty. I was handed the keys to the ancient station wagon in the garage, which I've been told I could borrow. My aunt would pay me for keeping up the place, and my parents would swing by every so often to see how I was doing. All I had to do was keep track of what repairs were made. Sweet deal. The first 2 weeks or so were pretty uneventful. Aside from living in a 1940s time capsule, nothing was really out of the ordinary. A lot of people were in and out. The guy who had been working on the hot water tank in the basement said he'd consistently feel a presence and heard a dog barking a few times when there was no dog in the house. Aside from that, there were no other complaints. It was about mid-June that I had my first experience. I slept in the guest bedroom, and I kept the door open with a box fan running because the house didn't have air conditioning. The bed faced a short hallway, at the end of which was a full-length mirror just before you got to the stairs. I was getting ready for bed one night when I happened to glance in the mirror and thought I saw a reflection. But when I looked again, I saw was a transparent black shape moving down the hall that served dissolved over the stairs as I focused on it. The house had a rickety screen porch that had been tacked on at some point. It was one of those that slants, so the ceiling is about 4 feet high on one end. One morning, I was eating breakfast out there. The air was completely still when the locked, though flimsy side door suddenly flew open hard enough to tear the hinges loose from the frame and then slam shut. I hit the ceiling, no pun intended. When I went to check it, the door was loose but locked. I felt the occasional presence now and again, but I disregarded it because I had a whole house to myself and was getting paid for just being there. The last and weirdest experience that sticks out in my mind happened in probably early August. There was a huge thunderstorm, possible tornado, and I was hiding out in the basement with all the knickknacks that nobody had wanted at the estate sale. I'd been down there for maybe half an hour when I heard somebody banging on the front door. I figured it must be somebody who was out driving in this weather in the middle of the night for whatever reason, and I got and run off the road. I went upstairs with a flashlight, since the power was out, and answered the door, only to find the very panicked-looking neighbor lady standing there, dripping wet, wearing a windbreaker and holding another one over her head. She said that she was so glad I was okay, and when I asked her why, she said that her husband had just seen me wandering around the backyard in a storm. She asked if I wanted to come over and wait out the storm at their house so I wouldn't be alone. I agreed and spent the night there. It was a good thing I hadn't actually been outside, because the next morning, there were trees and power lines down all over the neighborhood. I managed to last the summer. The house was sold in October of that year, and the only thing I know about it is that the new owners tore down the porch and built a pool. Sleep paralysis? Also doppelganger? It was August 26, 2015. 11 p.m. local time in the Philippines. Me and my classmates were on a spiritual retreat in Don Bosco, Batulao. Good thing they used the roomier rooms instead of the one massive. I had an existential crisis, getting out of my room and talking to other retreat participants awake outside. I remember talking to my classmates by the window and explaining my existential crisis. And I am sure I did not say scary things or make them scared, things they later claim I did. After being talked to by my guidance counselor and sent to my room, I fell asleep. What happened next either took place when I was asleep and imagining things as if I was awake, or when I was really awake and tired. Note, my sleep quality went down by 2005 from jet lag. I got used to staying up late and got worse by 2010, frequently sleep deprived. Anyways, I saw a Salesian brother inside my room watching me. The sight weirded me out since they never opened rooms to inspect sleeping classmates, let alone watch, and my room was locked. I couldn't think of what to do. I have a taser flashlight that I didn't use though. I fell asleep again and I woke up cold. Then fell asleep again and woke up early morning. Differential diagnosis. Sleep paralysis intruded in the room, likely. I never had sleep paralysis before or after this incident. Something didn't like my DIY decor. I'm not normally one to be all gung-ho to believe in the paranormal, but I can't help but think about the first experience I had with this stuff. I'm prone to random bouts of creative energy, so on this particular August night, it wasn't surprising that I was watching DIY videos on YouTube. One channel in particular, Do It Girl, got my attention and inspired me to start working on some really nice decor for my drab bedroom. I got up with some pretty awesome crafts, turned on the new Selena Gomez album that had just come out, and got to decorating. At the end of the night, I felt like I was living in a completely different room. The Christmas lights and beanies hanging over my bed really made me proud. My room looked badass, no question. For the next few days, I was living the life. The room felt so much more lively, and rather than trudging into the living room to play The Last of Us, I tucked to my room, something I never did. Unfortunately, it didn't feel that nice after we found a fountain outside by the trash bins of my apartment complex. My friend Josh, my brother, and I love to wander around at night, so when we found an old fountain by the trash, we were stoked. I described the size as something no bigger than one of those salad bowls at Olive Garden. It was a little dirty, but we didn't mind too much. We cleaned it up and brought it to my newly decorated room. It provided some great ambience when I wrote my book. I instantly fell in love with it. Weirdly enough, the creepy stuff started happening once I brought that fountain inside. First of all, I'm pretty dirt poor, so in order to decorate the blank spot by my window, I strung out some blank CDs. I thought it looked cool, so I didn't mind the ghetto quality. Every day that I had them up there, nothing fell down. I even slept with the ceiling fan on and they didn't fall. After a long night of gaming, I fell asleep in my room, and when I woke up, one of the CDs had fallen. I figured I'd just done a crappy job of taping them up there, so no big deal. I decided to double tape the fallen one up and a few more to make it more secure. That didn't work either. The next night, almost all the CDs had fallen, even the ones that had been double taped. My dad told me it was probably the ceiling fan, but like I said, nothing had happened before, so that wasn't it. They were secure too. I thought it might be the positioning of my air vent, since it was high up on the wall, but it was almost 10 feet away from the CDs, so there was no way it could have been blown down. The strangest thing happened that following night. I'd been writing my book and fallen asleep without turning off the fountain, so I didn't waste electricity. When I woke up that morning, all the CDs had fallen off, and the fountain was unplugged. I grilled my dad and brother, almost positive they'd come in and unplugged it. Both of them swore up and down that they didn't. The power outlet was about 3 feet out of reach from my bed, so I didn't knock it out accidentally either. Since then, we've moved, and I still don't know why my CDs fell, and how the damn thing got unplugged. It's nothing too terrifying, but it still unsettles me when I think about it. Death walking. My skeptical granddad told me he saw death walking in our vacation house. Every August, my family and I spent our vacations at my grandparents' seaside house. I have to mention that the house has always scared me as a kid, being it the only house in the road. By the way, this event did not happen directly to me, but did happen to my granddad. A few weeks ago, one of his lifelong friends passed out. My granddad is not the common person who believes in ghosts, as he is pretty skeptical. By the way, he has been destroyed by his friend's death, and it seemed that he could not sleep at night due to a new pain he felt to shoulders and obviously emotional pain. One night, he went down the hallway and sat down on his armchair in the middle of the night to stay in a position that could allow him not to feel the pain anymore. By the way, time passed by and he eventually got to sleep. Or not. The next morning, I got really shocked about what he had told me. I saw that he was really tired, so I asked him if he slept at all. But I did not expect this kind of answer. Do you know that I've seen death? And I was like, in my mind, yo, what? Did you smoke for real? I was sitting here on the armchair, and suddenly, from the hallway, an old lady dressed in black clothes came slowly walking. She didn't even look at me and went straight to the door. I asked him for more information, but he started crying, saying that she said just a few words. Do not worry. It's not the time, or something like that. But he could not remember exactly. Now, I do not know whether this comes to be true or not, but I got surprised and creeped out so much that now I have to shut my room's door, because it leads directly on the said hallway. What bothers me the most is that, for the first time in 18 years, my granddad did two things he did not ever do in front of his family before: crying and speaking about ghosts. Guys, why would he tell me a lie? I don't think he would be in the right mood for that. Could it be a dream? I don't know. But I'm not relaxed anymore. Paranormal stories from my life. Hey all, I've got a couple of stories that I want to share with you. I don't know if you consider seeing UFOs to be paranormal, but I do, since they are, well, not exactly normal to see on an everyday basis. I've seen UFOs thrice in my life, and I'll start out with those 3 stories. The rest of the stories are more genuinely paranormal, if you will. So, if you don't want to read my UFO stories, just skip ahead to story 4. I've seen UFOs once in Spain and twice in Denmark, where I happen to come from. Story 1. The first UFO I ever saw was in Denmark in early August 1999. I can't remember the exact date, but I remember that there was a big solar eclipse either a couple of days prior to or after I saw the UFO. The sighting was most intriguing and boring, since it was in broad daylight in the afternoon, so no flashy lights or anything. It was partly cloudy and I was home alone, and I went out on the balcony to get some fresh air, and I just looked around like you normally would, and then by mere coincidence, I saw a bell-shaped, shiny metallic UFO. It was just hovering, slightly tilted to one side and without making a sound. The size from my viewpoint was comparable to the size of your thumbnail when you're stretching your arm. It don't look like it was that far away, but it can be tricky with distances when looking up in the sky or at sea, so I have no clue. But my guess is that it was maybe 800 to 1,200 meters from where I was. I was a bit busy that day, so I didn't have all day to stand and stare at this thing. So after 15 to 20 minutes, without it moving an inch, I had to go down to the basement and put my laundry in the dryer. And when I came back, 5 minutes later, it was gone. Unfortunately, I come from a rather poor background, so I didn't have a camera, else I would have grabbed it in an instant and clicked the living hell out of it. Story 2. The sighting in Spain was actually 2 UFOs. It was on the 16th of September 2012, around 5 a.m., when I worked at a hostel as a nighttime receptionist in Cadiz. I just finished my shift and went back to my apartment, and subsequently went up on the roof terrace as I always did. There I was lying on my back, in the middle of the roof terrace, looking up at the stars. It was a crystal clear night, as most nights are down there, and while I was smoking a goodnight cigarette and stretching my back, some weird, yellowish flickering light, the size of the North Star, flew straight down through the atmosphere, or so it looked. It then stopped for a brief moment, while still being very high up in the atmosphere, and then it flew at an insane speed to my left. I mean, it was ridiculously fast. My guess is several hundred or 1,000 kilometers per hour. I could see that it was very high up in the atmosphere, and it moved in a zigzag, fast manner from side to side, while darting at this incredible speed. Its zigzagging looked very random, like how a fly does, but just way faster and with less deviation from my viewpoint. It took it around 3 seconds to get from the overhead of me until it was gone in the distance, won't say horizon, because it was so far up in the sky that it disappeared in the distance before even getting close to the horizon. Wondering what the heck just happened, I looked back to the point in the sky where it initially entered, and lo and behold, a second one descended into the atmosphere, stopped up, and flew in the exact same speed and manner, by this time in the almost opposite direction. The best way I can describe how they looked is if you imagine a huge bug in front of a dark yellow lamp, where the wings make the light flicker very fast and uneven, and then again around the perceived size of the North Star. It was roundish, hard to tell, because of the constant flickering and insane speed. They didn't make any sound. Story 3. The most recent sighting happened on the 23rd of June 2013, at exactly 2:45 a.m. where I'm from. I wasn't the only one to report it, albeit it is odd that actually a dozen of people saw it at that time of the day. It was in the local newspaper a couple days after, and I actually still have the article. It's somewhere to be found in the huge mess in my basement. I was riding my bike between 2 paper routes, worked as a part-time morning newspaper deliverer, also the reason I saw the article about it some days later, so I was working from around 2 a.m. till 6 a.m. I just finished one route and was on my way to the next, which was around a km from the first one, and while I was riding my bike between the 2 routes with radios in my ears, I suddenly noticed a very bright light, a blue light, on my left side up in the sky, between my overhead and the horizon. I quickly stopped up and stared at it. It was as if it was shining directly on me, since I got a bit blinded from it and could see the flares. It was similar to a person standing maybe 30 to 50 meters from you, with a powerful LED flashlight pointing in your direction. It made no sounds whatsoever, just like the other 2 times I've seen UFOs. The size was around 2 or 3 North Stars. I got a bit unsettled, because for the first time while seeing a UFO, I felt like I was somehow targeted by it, and it was almost completely dark. It was in a very quiet suburban area, on the other side of the canal here. Very quiet area, dead at night. They even turn off the streetlights here, in order to save money. After some 5 seconds, the bright light dimmed down to the size of me barely being able to see it, like some of the tiniest stars in the night sky. It's really hard for me to tell its altitude, but I estimate to be quite far up in the sky. Then when it was at its lowest brightness, it made a couple of zigzag moves while flying out into space, or at least that's how it looked from my perspective. I stood there for a minute or so, thinking what the heck just happened. and then carried on with my job. Now, more to the ghostly stuff, of which I have many experiences. What is odd about my experiences with ghosts and spirits or whatever in the world is, it really is, is that almost all occur between the ages of 17 to 21, with very few exceptions. I haven't experienced anything for almost a decade until recently. I had moved on my own already at 15, due to my drunken stepfather. The reason I remember the month is because I only lived in that caravan for that 1 month. I was sitting in the caravan late evening playing guitar before bedtime. I had an overview of the entire caravan, as it was one of those where you fold a table and then put mattresses on top of it, thus making a double bed. So, I was sitting halfway laying with my back leaning against the back window playing the guitar, while staring down towards the door and hallway, if you can call it that. And then suddenly, there was what I can only describe as anti-light, not a shadow, passing through the caravan from the right to the left. It came through the toilet door and disappeared into one of the kitchen cupboards. It's really difficult to exactly explain how it looked like, but imagine a splash of light, but just darkness, as if it sucked light into itself or something. By shape, it looked almost like the top of a bonfire, but just with flames all around it, with no base. It took 1 to 2 seconds, but then it was gone. It didn't move or topple anything. Neither did it make a sound. Just to make sure, I looked all around outside of the caravan, and there was no one to see. So, it could not have been a shadow, nor did it even resemble a shadow at all. That's kind of the end of the story, needless to say. I was scared shitless, and didn't sleep much that night. Story 5. This is one of the most terrifying stories. Or, the more it happened, because that apartment was haunted beyond what I thought was even possible. The first experience I had in that apartment, which was now my ex-mother-in-law's apartment, by the way, was when I had just met my now ex-girlfriend. It was November 2005, and we slept in her mother's double bed. I woke up during the night to take a pee. The toilet was around 8 meters from the bedroom in which we slept, with a room in between. I did what I had to do, then went back into the bedroom, waking my ex, because the old wooden floors were creaky really bad. And as I just laid down next to her, she said, "What's that noise?" And initially I couldn't hear anything, so I just shrugged it off and jokingly said that she should shut up, implying she was trying to creep me out in the middle of the night. But then, I also started to hear it. It was a sound of running water. My ex then opened the bedroom door to the room between the bathroom and the bedroom, as she went out to the bathroom and came back in and said that the shower was fully turned on, with the shower head pointing towards the sink where I had just been standing washing my hands. That creeped us both out, and I went into the bedroom again trying to calm each other down with rational explanations. The thing is that the knobs used to turn on the shower were those very old ones, looking like a Mercedes logo. They were really tight and chalky. There's no way that one could accidentally turn the shower on by hitting one of them while passing by. We tried all sorts of things the next day just to be able to calm ourselves with a rational explanation, but to no avail. And it still wouldn't explain why the shower head was turned 100 degrees or something facing the sink towards me. It was also very chalky. None of it made sense.